The police called the crime boss and said she asked for you before the ambulance left. At 10:47 p.m., rain dragged silver lines down the windows of Gabriel Cross's office while Philadelphia burned quietly beneath him. He had spent years becoming the man everyone feared, yet one name on the phone made his hand tighten around the receiver. Avery Bennett. The woman who once looked past his money, his power, and the blood surrounding his name. Most people believe danger always looks like an enemy. But sometimes danger is the only person who answers when the rest of the world turns away. This is more than a story about crime and forbidden attraction. It is about trust, sacrifice, and what happens when the darkest man in the city becomes one woman's last safe place. Stay until the end then, like the video, and comment where you are watching from. The name remained in Gabriel's mind long after Detective Nolan Price stopped speaking. Avery Bennett. 2 years had passed since he had heard her voice. 2 years since he had watched her leave a crowded coffee shop with a recorder in one hand and questions sharp enough to cut through every defense he had spent a lifetime building. Now she was lying beneath hospital lights because someone had followed her through Philadelphia and forced her car into a row of parked vehicles. Gabriel stood outside Observation Room 4 while rain tapped against the narrow windows at the end of the corridor. Nurses moved around him with practiced urgency. Shoes squeaked over polished floors, machines pulsed behind thin curtains. Somewhere nearby, a child was crying. None of it seemed to reach him. He watched Avery through the glass. A bandage covered part of her left arm. A dark bruise had begun to form beneath her cheekbone. Her hair was tangled around her face, and a shallow cut above her eyebrow had been sealed with surgical adhesive. She looked smaller than he remembered. Then she opened her eyes and saw him. The weakness vanished from her expression. For one suspended moment, neither of them moved. Gabriel entered and closed the curtain behind him. "You came?" Avery said. Her voice was rough but steady. "You asked." He pulled the only chair toward the bed and sat. His movements were controlled, economical, almost cold. Only the tension in his jaw betrayed him. Avery noticed it. She had always noticed too much. Gabriel looked at the monitor beside her bed, then at the bruising near her ribs. What did the doctor say? Mild concussion. Bruised ribs. Stitches were apparently too dramatic, so they glued my face together. You could have died. Avery tried to smile. I noticed. Gabriel did not return it. She lowered her eyes to the hospital blanket. Her fingers twisted the thin fabric until her knuckles turned pale. When the officer asked who he should call, I couldn't think clearly. You thought clearly enough to give him my name. That was the problem. Gabriel leaned back slightly. Explain. Avery looked toward the closed curtain as though she expected someone to be listening on the other side. I needed someone people would be afraid to lie to. That does not make me safe. No. She met his eyes. But you once told me you never make promises you cannot keep. Gabriel remembered the conversation. The coffee shop had been too bright for him. Sunlight had spilled across the small table between them, exposing every expression. Avery had chosen the location deliberately, public enough to protect her, ordinary enough to make him uncomfortable. She had arrived 5 minutes early. Gabriel remembered that too. Most journalists would have brought an assistant, a photographer, or a nervous editor pretending not to watch from another table. Avery came alone. She placed a small recorder beside her coffee and waited without fidgeting. Gabriel had expected fear. Instead, she looked curious. Not reckless curiosity. Something quieter and more dangerous. The kind that came from believing every person had a reason for becoming who they were. You requested an interview, Gabriel had said. You have 1 hour. Avery pressed the record button. Do you always begin conversations by setting limits? Yes. Why? Because people mistake access for permission. She studied him for a moment. "You think I'm here to expose you? You are a journalist. That is usually the job. Then we understand each other." Avery lifted her coffee but did not drink. "I don't want a list of crimes." Gabriel's gaze sharpened. "That disappoints me. I want to understand the choices." "What choices?" "The ones that turn a man into someone strangers lower their voices to discuss." Gabriel had considered ending the interview. Instead, he stayed. Avery asked about power. She asked about loyalty. She asked whether fear was more useful than love, and whether control could ever feel like peace. Then she asked the question that remained with him long after the article disappeared beneath newer headlines. "What do you do when someone trusts you?" Gabriel had looked toward the window. Most people do not. That was not the question. He returned his attention to her. "I protect what belongs to me." Avery's expression changed. "Trust does not make someone your property. In my world, it makes them my responsibility." The recorder captured the silence that followed. The article appeared 3 weeks later. It did not call Gabriel a monster. It did not call him a hero. Avery wrote about a man who had built a kingdom from careful compromises, a man who had traded the possibility of trust for the certainty of control, a man who slept well because regret was a luxury he had trained himself not to need. It was fair. That was what made it dangerous. People who hated Gabriel accused Avery of making him look human. People who feared him accused her of revealing too much. People who wanted his power began studying the article for weakness. Within days, a dark sedan appeared outside Avery's apartment. Her editor received an envelope containing photographs of his children leaving school. A source she had worked with for 6 years stopped answering her calls. Then a man followed Avery through an underground parking garage. He did not touch her. He did not need to. He stepped from behind a concrete pillar as she reached her car and said, "Some doors only open once. Smart people do not knock twice." Avery resigned from the magazine the following morning. She told no one the full reason. 6 months later, Gabriel saw her leaving a bookstore near Rittenhouse Square. She carried a paper bag filled with novels. Her hair was longer. Her clothes were softer, less formal. She looked like someone trying to build a life no one would consider threatening. Then she saw him. Fear entered her eyes. Not fear of what he might do. Fear of what his presence represented. Gabriel gave her a single nod and kept walking. He told himself it was mercy. Now, sitting beside her hospital bed, he understood that leaving had not protected her. It had only allowed him to remain ignorant of what she had lost. Avery watched him return from the memory. "You remember," she said. "I remember everything. That sounds exhausting. It is useful." She shifted against the pillows and winced. Gabriel noticed. "Stop moving. I am not one of your employees." "No. My employees follow instructions." Avery almost laughed, but pain stopped her. For a brief second, the old rhythm between them returned. Question and answer. Resistance and control. Then her expression darkened. 3 weeks ago, someone left an envelope outside my apartment." Gabriel became still. What was inside? A flash drive. No note, no name, no return address. Nothing. "Did you open it on your personal computer?" Avery looked away. "That is not the answer I wanted," Gabriel said. "I ran a basic scan first. You were an investigative reporter. You should know better. I have been writing corporate newsletters for 2 years. My paranoia was out of practice. What was on the drive, Avery inhaled slowly. Financial records, internal emails, photographs, city contracts, inspection reports. Thousands of pages. Connected to what? At first I did not know. She reached for the cup of water beside her bed. Her hand trembled. Gabriel took it before it spilled and held it while she drank. The gesture was simple, almost impersonal, but Avery noticed the care in it. She always noticed. The files went back 8 years, she continued. Public infrastructure contracts. Schools, bridges, transit stations, public housing repairs. The city paid for work that was never completed or was done with cheaper materials than the contracts required. How much money I could prove 30 million before the crash. I think the real number is higher. Gabriel set the cup down. Names. Councilman Thomas Kessler appears throughout the emails. Adrian Wolf owns a consulting firm called Riverside Civic Strategies. The city pays Riverside for development analysis, community planning, contract management. Most of the work either does not exist or is worth a fraction of what they charge. And after Riverside receives payment, the money moves. Avery's voice changed as she spoke. The fear remained, but something older pushed through it. Focus. The instinct that had once made her good at chasing stories other people avoided. Riverside transfers funds into consulting companies registered in Delaware and Nevada. Those companies send smaller amounts into holding firms. From there, the money reaches private accounts, political organizations, real estate partnerships, and offshore trusts. Gabriel studied her. You followed all of that alone. I followed enough to know it is real. Real does not mean complete. I know. The frustration in her voice was not directed at him. It came from 3 weeks of sleeping badly, checking windows, and wondering whether every unfamiliar face belonged to someone watching her. Avery continued. The money is only part of it. One elementary school received $6 million for structural repairs. The contractor used lower-grade steel and falsified the inspection. Last winter, part of the ceiling collapsed during class. Gabriel's eyes hardened. Was anyone killed? Number 3 children were injured, and the contractor received another city project 4 months later. Rain pressed harder against the windows. Avery looked at him. They did not just steal money, Gabriel. They stole safety. Every bridge left weak, every classroom left damaged, every family told there was no budget. The city already paid. The money simply went somewhere else. Gabriel knew corruption. Philadelphia had been built through bargains made in rooms without cameras. Politicians wanted votes. Contractors wanted access. Union leaders wanted influence. Men like Gabriel wanted stability. Money moved because everyone involved agreed not to ask where it had been. But what Avery described was not the usual exchange of favors. It was systematic, designed before the contracts were approved, protected at multiple levels. Why send it to you? He asked. Avery hesitated. One of the folders contained an article I wrote 4 years ago about Kessler, about riverfront redevelopment. He pushed several projects through approval while competing proposals remained buried in committee. I suspected the companies were connected, but I could not prove it. Whoever sent the drive knew your history. Yes. They also knew you had left journalism. Yes. Gabriel looked toward the curtain. That made you useful. Avery's mouth tightened and isolated. He did not soften the truth. Yes. She looked down again. I thought about taking it to the police. Why did you not? Because 2 names in the emails belonged to officers. Gabriel was not surprised. I thought about calling my old editor. Then I remembered what happened after the article about you. His gaze returned to her. You believe this happened because of me. I believe your world taught me what powerful people do when they feel exposed. The words should have angered him. Instead, they landed with the weight of something deserved. Avery saw that, too. I am not blaming you for the crash, she said more quietly. You should blame someone. I do. I just do not know who yet. Gabriel leaned forward. Tell me what you have not said. Avery's breathing changed. He had watched people lie in courtrooms, restaurants, warehouses, and funeral homes. Most lies began in the body before they reached the mouth. Avery was not lying. She was deciding whether telling the whole truth would place her in greater danger. Gabriel waited. Finally, she said, Some of the shell companies use financial structures I recognized. From where? From researching you. The room seemed to lose sound. Avery continued carefully. I do not think the money belongs to you. I did not find your name. I did not find any company directly controlled by you, but the pattern is similar: layered consulting payments, property holdings, private lenders, businesses that look legitimate because they mostly are. Gabriel's expression remained unreadable. Mostly. You know what I mean. I want to hear you say it. Avery met his eyes. Someone is laundering city money through a system that looks like yours. Gabriel rose and walked toward the window. Below them, red ambulance lights flashed across the wet street. A person could copy a method. A person could study old prosecutions, public records, and failed investigations. But the system Avery described had details most outsiders would never understand. Timing, distance between entities, the balance between legal revenue and hidden funds. Methods designed to survive audits without appearing too perfect. Someone had either learned from Gabriel's organization or worked close enough to observe it. Did you make copies? He asked. Yes. How many? 3. Where one is encrypted online. My old editor has another, though he does not know the password. My sister knows where to find the 3rd. Your sister's name, Lily. Where does she live? Portland, Maine. Gabriel took out his phone. Avery's voice sharpened. What are you doing? Making sure no one reaches her. You cannot send strangers to watch my sister without telling her. I can. Gabriel. He looked at her. If someone followed you for 3 weeks, searched your history, and forced your car off the road, they know you have a sister. Avery's anger faded. Fear returned in its place. She gave him Lily's address. Gabriel sent the information to Mason Hale with one instruction. Invisible protection. No contact unless necessary. Avery watched him put the phone away. You arranged that in less than a minute. I have practice. That is not comforting. It was not intended to be. The curtain moved. Detective Price entered with a paper cup of coffee and an expression that suggested he had heard enough from the hallway to know he should not ask what Gabriel was arranging. The doctor wants to keep Ms. Bennett overnight, he said. Observation for the concussion. She will stay, Gabriel replied. Avery looked at him. I am still in the room. Price cleared his throat. We found additional footage. Gabriel turned. From where? A private garage near Delaware Avenue. The motorcycle passed the entrance about 40 minutes before the collision. Was it following her? Price nodded. It was parked across from her office before she left. Avery went pale. Gabriel stepped closer to the detective. How long footage shows the rider arriving at 6:30? Ms. Bennett left after 10. They waited nearly 4 hours, Gabriel said. Price lowered his voice. This was planned. Avery stared toward the foot of the bed. For 3 weeks she had felt watched. She had checked mirrors, changed routes, and laughed at herself for becoming paranoid. She had not been paranoid enough. Price continued. We still do not have a plate. The rider's face was covered. Traffic cameras lost the bike near an industrial block south of the Navy Yard. Convenient, Gabriel said. Price studied him. If you know something, I need to hear it. If I knew who ordered it, detective, you would not need to ask. The answer made Price uncomfortable. That was intentional. After he left, Avery said, Do not threaten the police officer trying to help me. I did not threaten him. You implied murder. I implied efficiency. You make those sound like the same thing. In certain situations, they are. A nurse entered and checked Avery's blood pressure. She informed Gabriel that visiting hours had ended long ago. Gabriel gave her a look that had silenced more powerful people. The nurse did not blink. "She has a concussion," the woman said. "She needs sleep, not intimidation." Avery turned her face away to hide a smile. Gabriel stood. "I will be outside." The nurse folded her arms. "The waiting room is outside. I am aware." He looked at Avery. "No one enters without hospital identification. Detective Price will remain near the door." Avery's expression became serious. "I did not call you because I wanted to become part of your world." Gabriel paused. "You called me because your world failed to protect you. That does not mean I belong in yours." "No." His voice lowered. "It means the line between them has already been crossed." Avery held his gaze. "Why are you doing this?" Gabriel could have given her the practical answer. Her evidence touched financial systems connected to his organization. If she died, police and journalists would examine those connections. Protecting her protected him. That explanation was clean. It was also incomplete. "During our interview, Gabriel said you asked whether I regretted the people caught between men like me." Avery's brow tightened. "You said regret was useless." "I lied." She stared at him. Gabriel did not look away. "You wrote about me because you believed understanding a dangerous man might protect other people from becoming collateral damage. Then you lost your career because my world noticed you. That was my decision, and this is mine." Avery's voice softened. "What is to make sure you do not pay for trusting me twice." He left before she could answer. The waiting room outside the emergency department was nearly empty. A television mounted in the corner played a late-night news program with the sound muted. Rainwater glowed beneath the streetlights beyond the glass. Gabriel sat in a chair designed to discourage comfort and began making calls. Mason Hale answered first. "I want every camera between Avery's office and Delaware Avenue," Gabriel said. "Traffic, private security, parking garages, storefronts. Find the motorcycle. Already working on it. Put 2 people near Lily Bennett in Portland." Quietly. "Understood." Gabriel called Jonah Beck next. "I am sending you names and company records. Thomas Kessler, Adrian Wolf, Riverside Civic Strategies." Jonah's keyboard clicked in the background. "What am I looking for?" "Everything they tried to hide." His final call was to Eli Carter. "Prepare the Center City apartment. For how long, unknown." Eli was silent for a beat. "Is this connected to the woman from the article?" Gabriel looked through the glass in Avery's door. "Yes." "I thought you let her go." "So did I." By 3 in the morning, Mason had reconstructed part of the route. The motorcycle had appeared outside Avery's office before sunset. The rider remained across the street for hours, repositioning twice to avoid drawing attention. After Avery left, the motorcycle followed 3 car lengths behind her through 4 intersections. The collision was not an impulse. It was a scheduled event. Jonah found Riverside Civic Strategies registered in a renovated office tower near City Hall. The company reported 28 employees and millions in annual consulting revenue, yet payroll records suggested fewer than 10 people worked there consistently. 3 shell companies that received Riverside money had no physical offices. One shared a mailing address with a storage facility. Another listed a 79-year-old nursing home resident as its director. The third had been created by a law firm that also handled property transactions for businesses connected to Malcolm Voss. Gabriel listened without interrupting. "Anything connected to us?" he asked. "Not directly," Jonah said. "But the structure feels familiar." "How familiar?" "Close enough that I want to know who taught them." Gabriel ended the call. At 7:30, a physician cleared Avery for release with written instructions, pain medication, and warnings about dizziness. She emerged from the treatment area wearing the same clothes from the crash. Her sweater was torn near the shoulder. One sleeve carried a dried streak of blood. She had washed her face, but exhaustion remained beneath her eyes. Gabriel stood as she approached. "You look terrible," he said. Avery stared at him. "Your bedside manner is extraordinary. You are leaving with me. I need to go home." "No, my laptop is there. Then we retrieve it. I also need clothes." 10 minutes. Avery stopped in front of him. "You do realize I have survived 33 years without your permission. Last night suggests the system required improvement." Eli waited outside with the black sedan. The rain had weakened to a fine mist, leaving Philadelphia washed in gray light. Morning traffic pressed through narrow streets. Delivery trucks blocked intersections. People hurried beneath umbrellas with coffee cups and phones, unaware that somewhere among them a rider had spent 4 hours waiting to turn Avery Bennett into a warning. Avery sat beside Gabriel in the back seat. For most of the drive, neither spoke. She watched the city through the window. 2 days earlier, these streets had belonged to the familiar world she had chosen. Office meetings, grocery lists, unanswered emails, the small frustrations of a life deliberately designed to remain unremarkable. Now every parked vehicle looked occupied. Every helmet looked familiar. Gabriel noticed her checking the mirrors. "You are safe in this car." Avery did not look at him. "That sounds like a promise." It is. Her apartment occupied the 3rd floor of an aging brick building in Fairmount. The front steps were damp. A delivery box sat beside the entryway. Somewhere above them, music played through thin walls. Eli remained near the car while Gabriel followed Avery inside. The stairwell smelled of old paint and someone's breakfast. At the 3rd floor landing, Avery stopped. Gabriel nearly walked into her. "What?" She stared at her door. "I locked it." The door was not fully closed. A narrow line of darkness showed between the frame and the wood. Gabriel moved Avery behind him. His hand slipped beneath his jacket. "Stay here. What if someone is inside?" Then they chose the wrong morning. He pushed the door open slowly. The living room had been destroyed. Books lay scattered across the floor. Couch cushions had been cut open. Drawers had been pulled out and emptied. Framed photographs were broken. Cabinet doors hung loose from their hinges. Gabriel moved through the apartment without sound. Kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, closet. Empty. He returned to the living room. Avery stood just inside the doorway, staring at the wreckage. Her face showed no panic at first, only disbelief, then violation, then anger. "They were looking for the files," she said. "Did they find them?" "My laptop was with me." "Anything else?" "The backup is not here." Gabriel studied the room. A professional search could have left the apartment looking untouched. Whoever did this wanted Avery to see the damage. They wanted her to imagine strangers opening her drawers and touching her belongings. They wanted her to understand that privacy no longer existed. Avery stepped over a pile of books and entered the bedroom. She opened the closet and began packing quickly. Gabriel followed. "You have 5 minutes. You said 10. You spent 3 staring at the living room. I was processing. Process at the safe apartment." She pulled clothes from hangers and placed them into a canvas bag. On the floor beside the bed, Avery found a broken frame. The photograph inside showed her standing beside a younger woman near a rocky coast. Avery brushed glass from the image. Lily Gabriel asked. She nodded. "My sister." Gabriel saw the way her thumb rested over Lily's face. She has protection. She is going to hate that. She can hate it safely. Avery placed the photograph inside her bag. When she lifted the laptop case from beneath a chair, Gabriel noticed the protective way she held it. "That stays with me until Mason checks it. I need the files. You will have them. Gabriel. He took the case from her hand. If they entered your apartment, assume they touched everything. Avery wanted to argue. Then she looked at the overturned mattress and said nothing. They left 8 minutes later. The safe apartment occupied the 18th floor of a private building near Logan Square. The doorman greeted Gabriel by name and did not look twice at Avery's bruised face. The elevator required a coded key. 2 cameras watched the hallway outside the apartment. Inside, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Schuylkill River and the museum district. The furniture was modern, expensive, and carefully neutral. Avery walked through the living room. No photographs. No books. No food except coffee, bottled water, and enough pasta to survive a siege. Gabriel placed her bag beside the couch. It is not a home. What is it? A place where people remain alive. Avery turned toward him. How many places like this do you have enough? That is not a number. It was not intended to be. He showed her the bedroom, the security controls, and the secondary exit that led to a private stairwell. Avery stood near the windows and looked down at the city. From this height, the streets appeared calm. Distance made danger look organized. Gabriel loosened his tie. You need to rest. I need my laptop. Mason is coming. I know those files better than anyone. You also have a concussion. I had a concussion when I explained the entire scheme to you. And you looked terrible while doing it. She turned. You keep saying that? It remains true. Avery folded her arms carefully, avoiding pressure on her ribs. I am not going to sit in a bedroom while you and your people decide what my story means. Gabriel regarded her in silence. The woman standing before him was pale, injured, and exhausted. She was also the same woman who had once looked across a coffee shop table and refused to accept the answer he offered. He walked toward the kitchen. Coffee first. That is your compromise, no. It is your medication. Avery followed him. 3 hours, 2, 4. Gabriel opened a cabinet. 3. Avery sat at the kitchen island. Fine. For the first time since the phone call, a faint smile touched his mouth. It disappeared before she could be certain she had seen it. Mason arrived 20 minutes later with 2 technicians. They placed Avery's laptop on the dining table and connected it to an isolated system. Avery watched every movement. Gabriel stood behind her close enough that she could feel the quiet force of his presence. One technician frowned at the screen. What is it? Gabriel asked. The man typed several commands. There is something buried in the operating system. Avery leaned forward. A virus? Not exactly. The technician looked at Gabriel. It is a keystroke recorder, a sophisticated one. It has been capturing everything she types and transmitting it to an external server. The apartment fell silent. Avery stared at the laptop. Every search, every password, every note, every name she had entered during the last 3 weeks. Gabriel looked at the blinking cursor and understood that someone was still listening. The blinking cursor continued to pulse on Avery's screen. Once, twice, again. A small white line appearing and disappearing against the dark background ordinary enough to mean nothing. Yet everyone in the apartment watched it as though someone on the other side might suddenly speak. Avery's stomach tightened. How long has it been there? The technician did not answer immediately. He moved through system records, opening windows filled with dates, connection logs, and strings of code Avery could not understand. At least 17 days, he said. Avery counted backward in her head. That was the 2nd day after I received the drive. So they knew she opened it, Gabriel said, almost immediately. The technician pointed to a series of outgoing connections. This program records keystrokes, documents, opened browser activity, and screen images. It sends the information in short bursts so it does not draw attention. Can you trace the server? We can try, but whoever built this knows what they are doing. The data is moving through several locations before it reaches the final destination. Gabriel looked at Mason. Disconnect it. No, Avery said. Every face turned toward her. Gabriel's voice became quiet. What did you say? Avery stepped closer to the table. If we disconnect it, they know we found it. They already know where you live, where you work, and what you have been reading. Exactly. She looked at the laptop, then at Gabriel. They think I am alone. They think I am frightened and confused. They think they can watch me without being seen. Gabriel studied her face. Avery could almost see the calculations moving behind his eyes. You want to leave it active, he said. I want to choose what they see. The technician glanced at Mason. Mason looked at Gabriel. Gabriel said nothing for several seconds. Then he pulled out a chair and sat across from Avery. If we do this, you follow instructions. Avery took the chair opposite him. We decide together. No. Her expression hardened. Gabriel leaned forward. You are injured. You are being watched by people who tried to force your car into traffic. You do not know how they found you, how many people they control, or what they will do when they feel cornered. And you do. I understand how people behave when they are about to lose power. Avery held his gaze. That is why I called you. The answer settled between them. Gabriel looked toward the laptop. Fine. Mason raised an eyebrow. Gabriel ignored him. We decide together. But if I tell you to stop, you stop. Avery nodded once. That depends on the reason. Gabriel's mouth tightened. It was not agreement, but it was as close as either of them was likely to come. The technicians created a second system isolated from the first. Avery's compromised laptop remained connected to the internet, still transmitting information. Beside it, a clean device displayed copies of the same documents without revealing their activity. Mason moved toward the windows and made a call. Jonah joined them through a secure video connection from an office somewhere else in the city. His face appeared on the clean screen, tired and unshaven. I have been looking at Riverside all night, he said. The company is worse than it appears. Avery sat near the table with a fresh cup of coffee. Gabriel remained beside her, one arm resting across the back of his chair. Jonah brought up a list of city contracts. Riverside receives payments for consulting work. Some contracts are legitimate. That is important. A fake company with no real business would attract attention. Riverside does just enough actual work to appear functional. Gabriel nodded. Clean money covering dirty movement. Exactly. Jonah opened another document. But the timing is consistent. Every major city payment is followed within 12 to 16 days by transfers into one of 5 smaller firms. Those companies then send money to private accounts, political committees, or property partnerships. Avery looked at the dates. Why wait 2 weeks? To break the visual connection, Jonah said. Auditors often search for immediate transfers. 2 weeks creates distance. Gabriel pointed to one of the firms. Open that. The name appeared on the screen. Harbor Municipal Advisory. Avery recognized it. That company was mentioned in the school repair emails. Jonah nodded. It received almost $2 million for structural consulting. Its registered office is a storage unit in Wilmington. Avery's expression darkened. The elementary school with the collapsed ceiling. Yes. She leaned closer. Open the payment history. Jonah displayed the records. Avery scanned the dates, then froze. This transfer happened 3 days after the city inspector approved the building. Gabriel looked at her. You think the inspector was paid? I think someone was. Jonah opened the next layer. A portion of the money had gone to a private real estate company owned by the inspector's brother. Avery let out a slow breath. There it is. Gabriel did not look at the screen. He watched her. The exhaustion had not left her face, but her fear had changed shape. It had become concentration. Her hands no longer trembled. Her voice had recovered the calm precision of the woman who once sat across from him with a recorder between them. She had been hiding from this part of herself for 2 years. It returned the moment someone placed a question in front of her. Gabriel understood that better than he wanted to. Avery opened her compromised laptop. Mason stepped forward. "What are you doing?" "Giving them something to watch." She searched for Councilman Thomas Kessler. The key recorder captured each letter. She opened the folders containing his emails, his public schedule, and the contract approvals linked to his office. Then she waited. Nothing happened for 10 minutes. 20. Gabriel made a call to one of his contacts near City Hall. Mason monitored vehicles leaving Kessler's townhouse. Jonah watched public databases for unusual filings. Avery read slowly, deliberately, making certain the unseen observer could follow her path. At 11:30, Mason's phone vibrated. He read the message. Kessler canceled a lunch with 2 council members. Gabriel glanced toward him. That is not enough. His car left his house 5 minutes ago. Where is he going? We are following. Avery kept reading. 40 minutes later, Kessler's vehicle entered a private aviation terminal outside the city. Jonah searched flight records. He has a charter scheduled to Harrisburg. Avery looked at Gabriel. He reacted. Maybe. He canceled his day and left the city after I opened his files. Correlation is useful, Gabriel said. Proof is better. Avery heard the caution in his voice. It surprised her. You are the one who said patterns matter. They do. That is why we test more than one. She searched Adrian Wolfe next. She opened Riverside emails, internal invoices, and the documents connecting Wolfe to several shell companies. For an hour, nothing moved. Then Jonah noticed a change on the Riverside website. 3 executive biographies disappeared. A consulting report was removed. Avery refreshed the page. Another document vanished. They are cleaning public records, she said. Jonah began archiving every page. Mason received a call. One of Wolfe's assistants just entered the office on a Saturday. Gabriel looked at the time. Who else? 2 men from a document storage company. Avery sat back. So Kessler runs. Wolfe destroys records. Gabriel placed his hand near the laptop. Now open Voss. The room became quieter. Malcolm Voss was not a politician who could explain a sudden trip as government business. He was not a developer who needed to maintain the appearance of legal cooperation. He was a man who had survived 4 decades by knowing which threats to erase and which ones to purchase. Avery typed his name. She opened the shell companies connected to the private bank. She examined a list of construction firms controlled by his relatives. She clicked on a photograph of Voss attending a charity dinner beside Councilman Kessler. Then they waited. For nearly 2 hours, there was no reaction. Avery's headache worsened. She pressed 2 fingers against her temple. Gabriel noticed. Stop. I am fine. You have said that several times. It has not become more convincing. She ignored him and opened another document. Gabriel closed the laptop. Avery looked at him. What are you doing? Following the doctor's instructions, since you refuse to. We are in the middle of something. You are about to fall out of the chair. I am not. She stood too quickly. The room shifted beneath her. Gabriel caught her before her knees gave way. One arm closed around her waist. His other hand steadied the back of her neck. For a moment, Avery could hear only her own breathing. Gabriel was close enough that she could see the faint shadow of exhaustion beneath his eyes. Close enough to smell coffee rain and the clean trace of his cologne. Still fine, he asked. His voice was low. Avery placed one hand against his chest. The gesture was meant to create distance. It did not feel like distance. I stood too quickly. You nearly collapsed. That is a dramatic interpretation. Gabriel's hand remained at her waist. I am a dramatic man. Avery looked up at him. No one has ever accused you of that. They were afraid to. Mason cleared his throat from the other side of the room. Gabriel slowly released her. Avery sat again more carefully this time. Mason placed a phone on the table. Voss moved equipment out of a warehouse near the river. Gabriel's attention sharpened. What kind of equipment? Computers, filing cabinets, 2 industrial shredders. Trucks left 20 minutes ago. Avery looked at the closed laptop. They were watching. Gabriel nodded. And they were afraid of what you might find. The experiment had produced 3 reactions. Kessler fled toward political protection. Wolf began deleting records. Voss moved physical evidence. Yet none of those responses proved who sent the files, who installed the monitoring program, or who ordered the motorcycle. Avery opened her notebook. We have at least 3 separate interests. Gabriel looked toward her. Explain. The person who sent the files wanted me to investigate. She wrote the first name at the top of the page. The person monitoring me wants to know what I discover. A second line. The person who ordered the crash wanted to frighten me or stop me. A third. Mason crossed his arms. They could be the same person. They could, Avery said. But the behavior does not fit. Gabriel watched her build the argument. If the sender wanted me dead, they would not have given me the evidence. If the watcher wanted me to stop, they could have destroyed the laptop or stolen it. Instead, they are observing. And if the motorcycle rider wanted to kill me, Gabriel says I would be dead. Mason glanced at Gabriel. He is usually right about that. Avery continued. So, either one group is sending mixed signals, or several groups are using me for different reasons. Gabriel stood and walked toward the windows. Below them, Philadelphia moved through the afternoon. Traffic curved around Logan Circle. Pedestrians crossed beneath winter trees. The city appeared ordinary from above, as if corruption required dark alleys and hidden rooms instead of office towers, campaign dinners, and signed contracts. You are not investigating them, Gabriel said. Avery looked up. What am I doing? You are the board. The words made the room feel colder. They move when you move. They wait when you wait. Every file you open tells someone where pressure is building. Avery stared at the names in her notebook. Then we stop letting them decide the game. Gabriel turned from the window. What do you suggest? We give them the wrong pressure. Avery reopened the compromised laptop. This time she searched Deputy Mayor Rebecca Sloan. Her name had appeared in dozens of emails, but never as the author of anything directly criminal. She had been copied on project updates, funding discussions, and contract approvals. Her office oversaw housing and development, which made her presence normal. Normal did not mean innocent. Avery opened Sloan's public biography. 51 years old, former housing attorney, deputy mayor for 6 years. Widely respected for surviving 2 administrations without being replaced. Known for controlled public appearances and a reputation for competence. She is too close to everything, Avery said. Jonah began searching Sloan's financial disclosures. Gabriel remained silent. Avery opened a series of emails involving Riverside and the city housing office. Sloan was copied on several conversations about budget revisions. In one message, Kessler asked that a contract receive immediate approval. Sloan's response was only one sentence. Proceed after standard review. Avery read it twice. That could mean anything. It was designed to, Gabriel said. Jonah's voice came through the screen. I found something. He displayed the ownership chain of one of the companies receiving money from Riverside. The structure moved through 2 holding firms and a private trust. The trust had originally been registered under the name Rebecca Monroe. Avery searched Sloane's personal history. Monroe was her maiden name. Gabriel leaned closer to the screen. Jonah continued. The company was created 20 years ago. It appears dormant for most of that time. Then it began receiving money from Riverside 4 years ago. How much? Gabriel asked. Just over $3 million. Avery felt the story shift beneath her. She is not only copied on the emails. No, Jonah said. She may be getting paid. Gabriel looked at the network diagram. Or someone wants her name in the chain. Avery turned toward him. You think she is being framed? I think powerful people rarely leave their real names attached to stolen money. Sometimes arrogance looks like carelessness. Sometimes framing looks like evidence. Avery closed the financial record. How do we know which one? Gabriel did not answer immediately. Then he said, We make her react. The room remained active into the evening. Mason left to coordinate security around Avery's sister. Jonah continued tracing Sloane's financial history. The technicians monitored the outgoing data from Avery's laptop, confirming that information was still being transmitted. Avery sat near the windows with a bowl of soup she had barely touched. Gabriel stood at the kitchen counter, speaking quietly on the phone. His suit jacket lay across the back of a chair. He had rolled his sleeves to his elbows. Avery noticed the tattoos on his forearms. Dark lines moved over his skin in patterns too intricate to understand from a distance. Some disappeared beneath his shirt. Others crossed old scars. She remembered seeing a small section during the interview 2 years earlier. What do they mean? She had asked. History. Who's mine? Useful history. No. He had pulled down his sleeve, ending the discussion. Now Gabriel ended the call and found Avery watching him. You should eat. You should sleep. I am not the one with a concussion. You have been awake longer than I have. I am accustomed to it. That does not make it healthy. Gabriel poured himself coffee. You sound like the nurse. She frightened you. She was irritating. She made you leave. I chose to leave. Avery smiled. Of course you did. Gabriel sat across from her. The room had grown darker around them. City lights reflected in the windows, placing their images over the skyline. Avery looked at his arms again. Do they all mean something? Yes. Will you tell me no? You have become much more conversational. I am exhausted. That must be it. Gabriel lifted his cup. For several moments, neither spoke. The silence felt different from the one in the hospital. Less guarded, more aware. Avery looked down at the soup. Why did you agree to the interview I told you? You said I asked the right questions. You did. That was not the whole reason. Gabriel's gaze settled on her. You have spent 2 years thinking about that. No. The answer came too quickly. Gabriel almost smiled. Avery sighed. Sometimes. He looked toward the city. Most reporters began by explaining why I should care about their publication, their audience, their reputation, their influence. I remember. You did not. I assumed you already knew who I worked for. You wrote that you wanted to understand how someone builds a life in the shadows while everyone else searches for light. Avery remembered the sentence from her original email. It sounded less dramatic when I wrote it. It was still unusual. So you agreed because I was unusual. I agreed because you wanted to understand the cost, not the result. Avery studied him. And did I partly? What did I miss? Gabriel's eyes returned to hers. You believed control was the opposite of trust. Isn't it? No. He took a slow drink of coffee. Control is what people build after trust fails. Avery felt the weight beneath the answer. She wanted to ask who had failed him. She knew he would not answer. Instead, she said, You were not honest with me. I was as honest as I could be. That is what dishonest people say when they want credit for restraint. Gabriel's expression did not change, but something in his eyes did. You wrote that I had traded trust for control. You remembered the exact line. I told you. I remember everything. Avery looked at him across the table. And was I wrong? No. The answer came quietly. Gabriel leaned back. But you were not honest either. Avery frowned. How? You wrote as if you were only studying me. I was. You were also deciding whether the things people said about me were true. That is part of studying someone. You wanted to know whether there was enough of a man left beneath the reputation to feel guilty. Avery did not deny it. Gabriel continued. And when you found one, you published him. The words were not an accusation. That made them harder to answer. I did not mean to put you at risk, Avery said. You did not. I put myself at risk. Yes. Avery looked toward the darkened river. Do you regret agreeing? Gabriel watched her for a long moment. No. The single word held more than she expected. Her phone vibrated on the table. Both of them looked down. The device had been replaced and checked by Mason's team. Only a few people had the number. The screen showed an unknown caller. Avery answered without touching it, placing the call on speaker. Hello? A woman's voice came through. Calm, controlled, professional. Ms. Bennett, this is Rebecca Sloan. Avery looked at Gabriel. He did not move. Deputy Mayor, I received a notification that you have been asking questions about companies connected to my office. Avery kept her voice neutral. I have not contacted your office. No, you have been less direct. Gabriel took out his phone and began typing. Avery watched the words appear on his screen. Keep her talking. Sloan continued. You have information that is partially accurate and dangerously incomplete. How do you know what information I have? A pause. Because I know what was taken. Avery felt the air change. Taken from where? That is not a conversation for the phone. Then why call to prevent you from making an irreversible mistake? Avery looked at Gabriel again. He typed another sentence. Ask who sent it. Do you know who sent me the files? I have suspicions. Names. Not on this line. Avery leaned forward. If people are already following me, this is not the time for careful language. Sloane's voice remained measured. You were in an accident last night. Avery went still. Gabriel's eyes darkened. How do you know that? It appeared in a police incident report. The report did not include my name. Silence. Not long. Long enough, Sloane said. Then we should meet. Why? Because you are standing in the center of something you do not understand, and the people who placed you there are counting on your fear. Avery looked at Gabriel's screen. Agree. Choose the location. Tomorrow morning, Avery said. 10 o'clock. The free library. Main hall. Public enough to make you comfortable. Public enough to make everyone behave. Sloane gave a quiet breath that might have been amusement. You may bring whoever is protecting you. Her meaning was clear. She knew Avery was not alone. I will see you at 10, Sloane said. The call ended. Avery remained still for a moment. She knew about the accident. Gabriel's expression had become cold. She also knew you were protected. How? Either someone saw us leave the hospital or someone is still watching this building. Mason entered from the hallway at that moment, already holding his phone. We have a problem. Gabriel stood. What Mason crossed the room and placed the phone in front of them. A message had arrived on the clean device. The sender was unknown. The text was brief. Sloane will offer you protection. What she wants is time. Time to erase records. Time to bury witnesses. Do not trust her. Below the message was a photograph. Rebecca Sloane stood inside a concrete parking garage. She was speaking to a gray-haired man in a dark coat. Avery did not recognize him. Gabriel did. Daniel Mercer, he said. Who is he, Malcolm Voss's attorney? Avery looked from the photograph to Gabriel. So Sloane is working with Voss. Maybe. She is meeting his lawyer in secret. Maybe. Avery's frustration sharpened. What else could it mean? Gabriel enlarged the image. A sign appeared on the concrete wall behind them. Only part of the lettering was visible. Mason stared at it. I know that garage. Gabriel looked up. Where? It belongs to the Federal Courthouse Annex. Avery looked again at Sloane and the attorney. The photograph did not prove a corrupt alliance. It could show a negotiation, a witness agreement, an immunity deal, a secret investigation, or the careful burial of everything Avery had found. Gabriel set the phone down. No one deletes anything, he said. No one trusts anyone. Avery looked at the compromised laptop where the cursor continued to blink. Somewhere beyond the apartment, an unseen person was still watching her. This time, Avery opened a blank document and began to type. Rebecca Sloane. I believe you know why I am writing. Avery stopped there. The cursor blinked after the final period, waiting for another sentence. Gabriel stood behind her chair, reading over her shoulder. You are not sending that. Avery looked up. Why not? Because she already agreed to meet you. She also knew about the crash before she should have. That makes her dangerous. It does not make her careless. Avery turned back to the screen. I want her to know I am not walking into that library confused. Gabriel reached past her and closed the document. His hand settled beside hers on the table. You do not warn someone that you have noticed their mistake. You let them repeat it. Avery looked at his hand, then at him. You enjoy speaking in rules. Rules keep people alive. Some rules only keep powerful people comfortable. Gabriel held her gaze for a moment. Then he stepped away. Get some sleep. Avery glanced toward the clock. It was nearly midnight. You are planning security. Yes. You expect me to sleep while you prepare for a meeting with a deputy mayor who may be laundering public money through a company registered in her old name. I expect you to try. That is not the same thing. No. Gabriel turned toward Mason. Show me the library. Mason placed a tablet on the dining table and opened a floor plan of the Free Library of Philadelphia. Avery remained in her chair, watching as Gabriel studied the entrance's stairwells, elevators, and interior balconies. There are 3 public entrances, Mason said. The main doors on Vine Street, a side entrance near the courtyard, and an employee entrance on the east side. Cameras, most of the public areas. Blind spots near the older stairwells. Roof access, locked from inside. Gabriel pointed to the main hall. She chose the meeting, but Avery chose the location. Sloane will assume we have people nearby. She will bring her own security, Mason said. Official? Probably not. Official security leaves records. Gabriel moved his finger across the floor plan. Eli stays near Vine Street. You take the east side. Put one person inside the reading room and another near the courtyard. Avery crossed her arms. Is this necessary? Gabriel did not look up. Yes, it is a public library. Public places create witnesses. They do not remove danger. She asked to talk. So do people who want to know how close they need to stand. Avery rose slowly from the table. Her ribs still ached when she moved, but the dizziness had eased. I am going to the meeting, Gabriel. You do not need to turn it into an invasion. He finally looked at her. I am not preparing to invade. What would you call this? Insurance? Avery gave him a tired look. Of course. Gabriel returned his attention to the floor plan. You leave your phone here tomorrow. No. His gaze lifted again. Avery continued before he could speak. Sloane may show me something. She may give me a number, a name, a document. I need a way to record it. You will have a notebook. A notebook cannot photograph evidence. It also cannot be tracked remotely. My new phone was checked. So was your old laptop. Avery had no answer to that. Gabriel closed the tablet. You take the printed article in a notebook, nothing else. And if something happens, I will be sitting beside you. The certainty in his voice quieted her resistance. She looked toward the dark windows. Philadelphia glowed below them in scattered gold and white, every street hiding a life neither of them could see. Avery wondered how many people slept peacefully because they did not know who had approved the steal in their child's school or who had signed the inspection beneath a bridge. Ignorance could look like safety from far enough away. She had tried to live that way. The lie had lasted 2 years. Gabriel watched her. You are doing it again. What? Leaving the room without moving. Avery looked back at him. I am thinking. That is not always useful at midnight. You have been thinking since the police called. I am accustomed to my mind. And I am not. No. The answer was too immediate to be teasing. Avery almost argued, then saw the concern beneath it. Gabriel did not know how to express worry without turning it into an order. That did not make it less real. I will sleep, she said. Good. But I am not promising to stay asleep. That would be a promise you cannot keep. She gave him a faint smile. You remember everything. Yes. Avery went to the bedroom. She closed the door but left it unlocked. The decision bothered her more than it should have. 2 years earlier, she would have checked the lock twice. Now, Gabriel Cross was on the other side of it, and some part of her believed that was safer than any bolt. She slept in fragments. In one dream, she sat in the old coffee shop with Gabriel, but the recorder between them was covered in blood. In another, the motorcycle waited at the end of a school hallway while children ran past it. She woke before dawn to the sound of low voices in the living room. Gabriel and Mason were speaking near the windows. Avery could not hear every word, only pieces. Federal contacts. Voss. No confirmed tail. Sloan's schedule. When she entered the room, Gabriel looked toward her immediately. You should still be asleep. You should stop saying that. Mason closed the tablet. Coffee is ready. Avery looked between them. What did you find? Gabriel handed her a cup. Rebecca Sloan canceled 2 meetings after speaking to you. That does not prove anything. No. She also sent her official driver home last night, Mason added. A private car picked her up near her apartment this morning. Where did it go? We lost it near Society Hill. Avery took a drink. So she is being careful. Gabriel adjusted the cuff of his shirt. Or afraid. Of us, of whoever is watching her. Avery thought of the photograph in the federal garage. Sloan and Malcolm Voss's attorney standing beneath fluorescent lights. 2 people who might have been making a deal to destroy evidence. Or a deal to preserve it. By 8:30, Avery was dressed in dark trousers, a cream blouse, and a long coat Gabriel had arranged to have delivered. The clothes fit almost perfectly. That irritated her. She emerged from the bedroom and found Gabriel waiting near the door. He wore a charcoal suit white shirt and no visible tie pin or watch. Nothing reflective. Nothing unnecessary. Avery looked at the coat. How did you know my size? I did not. This fits. I know people who estimate well. That is unsettling. You have said that about several useful things. Mason handed Avery a leather folder containing the printed article and blank paper. No phone, he said. Avery looked at Gabriel. He held out his hand. She placed the clean device in his palm. This feels like surrendering evidence. It is temporary. You say that like everything is temporary. Gabriel slipped the phone into a secure drawer. Most things are. The elevator carried them to the lobby in silence. Eli waited outside beneath a pale morning sky. The city had the color of cold steel. Traffic moved slowly around Logan Circle. Pedestrians crossed against the light, coffee in one hand, phones in the other. Avery entered the back seat beside Gabriel. Mason followed in a separate vehicle. For several blocks, Avery watched storefronts pass, a florist arranging white roses, a delivery driver arguing with a parking officer, a woman holding a child's hand while waiting for a bus. Small scenes of ordinary life. They made the conspiracy feel larger, not smaller. All those people paid taxes, obeyed regulations, waited for repairs, trusted official promises. Somewhere in an office, men had turned that trust into invoices. Gabriel noticed where she was looking. "You are angry." "Yes." "Good." Avery turned to him. "That is an unusual response. Fear makes people smaller. Anger can make them precise. Anger can also make people reckless. That is why I am here." The sedan stopped outside the Free Library at 9:42. Stone steps rose toward tall doors beneath carved figures and old architecture. Students moved in groups. Tourists took photographs. A man in a brown coat played violin near the curb. The building felt permanent in a way political careers did not. Eli opened the door. Gabriel stepped out first, scanning the street before offering Avery his hand. She looked at it. "I can walk." "I know." She took it anyway. His fingers closed around hers only long enough to help her from the car. The contact remained after he released her. Inside the library smelled of old paper, polished wood, and winter coats. Voices stayed low beneath the high ceilings. Mason disappeared toward the east corridor. Eli remained outside. Gabriel led Avery to a table near the main hall with clear views of the entrances. "You have done this before," Avery said. "Met politicians in public buildings, prepared for someone to shoot you in a library." Gabriel pulled out a chair for her. "Not this library." Avery sat, comforting. They waited. At exactly 10, Rebecca Sloan entered through the main doors. She wore a dark blue coat over a gray suit. Her hair was pinned neatly at the back of her head. She carried no bag. Two men entered several seconds after her and separated without looking in her direction. Gabriel noticed. So did Avery. Sloan approached the table. Her eyes moved first to Avery's bruised face, then to Gabriel. The surprise lasted less than a second. "Ms. Bennett, Deputy Mayor." Sloan looked at Gabriel. "Mr. Cross. I should have guessed." Gabriel remained seated. "You asked for a conversation." Sloan removed her coat and placed it over the back of the empty chair. "I asked to speak with Ms. Bennett. She is speaking with me present." Avery looked at Gabriel. "I can answer for myself." Gabriel's eyes remained on Sloan. "I know." Sloan sat. Her posture was straight, her hands relaxed on the table. If she was frightened, she had trained herself not to display it. "You look fortunate," Sloan said to Avery. "I do not feel fortunate. You survived. That is a low standard." Sloan glanced at the bruise near Avery's cheek. "In this situation, it may be the most important one." Avery opened the leather folder. "You said the information I received was incomplete." "It is. You also said you knew what had been taken." Sloan looked around the hall. A group of students passed behind them. Somewhere above, a cart rolled across a stone floor. When she spoke again, her voice was lower. "The files came from my office." Gabriel's expression did not change. Avery leaned forward. "Who sent them a junior policy aide named Evan Wolfe?" The surname settled heavily. Adrian Wolfe's nephew, Avery, said. "Yes." "What did he have access to? Contract correspondence, budget reports, meeting schedules, internal memoranda? More than someone at his level should have had, but less than he believed. Why was he collecting evidence against his uncle?" Sloane's mouth tightened. "He was not doing it voluntarily." Gabriel spoke. "Blackmail." Sloane looked at him. "That is my conclusion. By whom I do not know." Gabriel did not blink. "That answer is convenient. It is also true." Avery took out her notebook. How long had Evan been copying files? At least 7 months. And you did not notice I noticed irregular access 4 months ago. By then, whoever controlled him had already obtained enough material to cause damage. What kind of blackmail? Sloane hesitated. Avery saw it. You know. I know part of it. Then give me that part. Sloane folded her hands. Evan was involved in approving false invoices before he joined my office. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. His uncle used him as a signature when certain documents needed distance. So Evan participated. Yes, and someone threatened to expose him. Yes. Why send the files to me? Sloane's eyes settled on Avery. Because you were credible. Avery waited. That is not the whole answer. No. Sloane's voice remained controlled. You had already written about riverfront contracts. You had already raised questions about Kessler. More importantly, you no longer worked for a major publication. Gabriel's gaze became colder. Sloane continued. You had no legal department, no institutional security, no editor assigning a team to protect you. Avery felt the truth before Sloane finished speaking. I was easier to isolate. Yes. Gabriel leaned closer. You say that as though you are describing a hiring decision. Sloane met his eyes. I am describing how someone else evaluated her. And what did you do after realizing that I began trying to determine who was controlling Evan, while Avery was being watched? I did not know she had received the files until 3 weeks ago. The crash happened last night. I did not order it. Gabriel's voice dropped. I did not accuse you yet. Sloane held his gaze. No. You were allowing me the opportunity to accuse myself. Avery looked between them. The exchange carried no raised voices, yet it felt more violent than an argument. She placed one hand on the printed article. Is the corruption real? Sloane looked at her. Yes. The answer came without qualification. Thomas Kessler. Yes. Adrian Wolfe. Yes. Riverside. Yes. Malcolm Voss. Sloane paused. Connected. That is not the same answer. It is the answer I can prove. Avery opened the article to a marked page. 30 million in diverted public funds. At least 42. Avery stared at her. Sloane continued. Your files do not include the full housing contracts or several transportation projects. Kessler and Wolfe have been operating for 8 years. Voss provided labor access material suppliers and companies willing to submit false bids. Who else? 6 city officials, 2 inspectors, a procurement attorney, several contractors, and you. Sloane's eyes narrowed slightly. No. Avery slid a financial diagram across the table. A company connected to your maiden name received more than $3 million. Sloane looked down. For the first time, something genuine moved across her face. Not surprise. Recognition. That company belonged to my father. Jonah Beck says it began receiving money 4 years ago. I know. Gabriel spoke. Why? Because Adrian Wolfe wanted insurance. Sloane lifted her eyes. My father created Monroe Development Holdings 20 years ago for a legitimate housing project. The company became inactive after his death. Wolfe revived it without my permission and moved money through it. Avery watched her carefully. You expect us to believe a developer used a company tied to you without your knowledge. I expect you to verify it. Why not shut it down? Because when I discovered the transfers, I realized someone was building evidence that could be used against me. Closing the company would have warned them that I knew. Gabriel leaned back. So you watched. I documented. You benefited. I never touched the money. That is a legal distinction. It is also a factual one. Avery felt the conversation shifting into familiar territory. Everyone had a precise word for what they had not done. No one wanted to discuss what they had allowed. How long have you been documenting this? She asked. 3 years. Why? To build a federal case. Gabriel's expression did not soften, with which prosecutor Sloan looked at him. I am not giving you that name in a public room. Then give Avery enough to confirm the investigation exists. I brought something better. Sloan reached into the inner pocket of her coat and removed a small flash drive. She placed it on the table. Gabriel looked at it but did not touch it. Avery asked, "What is on that recorded conversations? Original contract files, witness statements, financial records that do not appear in what Evans stole, communications with federal investigators." Avery stared at the drive. You carried that here. It is encrypted. That is not what I asked. Sloan's expression remained calm. I needed you to understand that I am not asking for trust. What are you asking for time? The word seemed to expand between them. How much? Avery asked. 60 days. Gabriel gave a quiet, humorless breath. No, Sloan did not look at him. In 60 days, federal investigators will be positioned to make arrests, freeze accounts, and prevent key witnesses from leaving the country. Avery looked at the drive again. And if I publish now, Kessler will claim political persecution. Wolf will destroy whatever records remain. Voss will move his operations. Witnesses will disappear. They are already moving, because someone is forcing the investigation into the open before it is ready. Gabriel spoke. Someone besides Avery. Yes. Sloan turned toward him. Someone wants chaos, not justice. Avery picked up the drive, but did not place it in her folder. What do you get if I wait? Sloan looked at her directly. I get to remain in office long enough to help complete the case. That is the public answer. It is also true. And the private answer? Sloan was quiet. Then she said, I become the deputy mayor who exposed the largest public corruption network in the city's recent history, instead of the deputy mayor whose office failed to notice it. Avery studied her. You want the story. I want the outcome. You want both. Yes. The honesty surprised Avery more than denial would have. Sloan continued. Ambition and public service are not opposites. People who claim otherwise are usually hiding one of them. Gabriel looked toward the 2 men Sloan had brought. One stood near a column pretending to read his phone. The other had moved closer to the main entrance. Tell us about Malcolm Voss's attorney, Gabriel said. Sloan's eyes returned to him. What about him? You met Daniel Mercer in a federal garage. A pause. Small. Real. Sloan's attention shifted to Avery. You received a photograph. We received a warning, Avery said. Sloan leaned back. Then whoever is controlling Evan still has access to my movements. Why were you meeting Mercer? Gabriel asked. Sloan looked around the hall again. Voss offered cooperation. Avery felt a flare of anger. Cooperation. He is willing to provide records and testimony against Kessler and Wolf, in exchange for what limited immunity on specific financial crimes. Gabriel's expression became almost amused. Voss steals for 30 years and walks away because he gives you politicians. He does not walk away. He keeps breathing outside a cell. Sloan's voice hardened for the first time. You think I enjoy negotiating with men like Voss? Gabriel met her eyes. I think you enjoy winning. Sloan did not deny it. Avery looked at the drive in her hand. So your federal case is real, but part of it depends on protecting one criminal so you can arrest others. It depends on testimony that can be corroborated. And you did not tell me that on the phone. I did not know whether you were alone. Avery glanced at Gabriel. Sloan followed the look. No one is alone once Gabriel Cross takes an interest. The words carried more meaning than Avery wanted to examine in that moment. She closed her fingers around the drive. You said Evan was being blackmailed. Where is he now? Sloan's expression changed. This time the control did not return immediately. I do not know. When did you last see him? 2 days ago. Before the crash? Yes. Did he disappear? He failed to arrive at work. His apartment was empty. Gabriel looked at Sloane. And you still came here asking Avery to wait. I came here because publishing now may get him killed. Avery's pulse quickened. Or waiting may give someone time to kill him. Sloane's eyes did not move. That is why I need 48 hours before you decide. You asked for 60 days. I am giving you 48 hours to verify what is on the drive. After that, I need your answer. Avery looked down at her notebook. The journalist in her wanted the evidence. The frightened woman who had awakened in a wrecked car wanted the truth immediately. Those needs were not the same. Sloane stood and reached for her coat. Publishing a story is not the same as building a case, she said. If you release incomplete information, guilty men become famous. They hire attorneys. They appear on television. They turn prosecution into politics. Avery stood as well. And if I wait, you control the timing, the arrests, and the story of your own involvement. Yes, again the honesty. Sloane put on her coat. We all want control, Ms. Bennett. The important question is what we are willing to sacrifice to keep it. Her eyes moved briefly to Gabriel. He understood the message. Avery did too. Sloane looked at her one final time. Verify the drive. Speak to your sources. Then decide whether being first matters more than being right. She turned and walked toward the main doors. The two men followed separately. Gabriel waited until they disappeared outside. Then he looked at Avery. She told us part of the truth. Which part? The part she could survive telling. Avery slipped the drive into the leather folder, and the rest Gabriel glanced toward the ceiling cameras. The rest is usually where the bodies are. They left through the east entrance. Mason joined them near the car. No visible tail, he said. Gabriel opened the rear door for Avery. Visible is not the same as absent. Inside the sedan, Avery held the folder against her lap. For several blocks, she said nothing. Gabriel watched the streets. What are you thinking that Sloane may be right? About waiting. About the difference between publication and prosecution? Gabriel looked toward her. She is using a true argument to protect her own position. That does not make the argument false. No. Avery turned toward the window. She gave me evidence. She gave you evidence she selected. She admitted ambition. Because admitting the smaller truth makes the larger lie easier to believe. Avery looked at him. You think she is lying? I think she is managing us. Is that different from what you do? Gabriel did not answer immediately. Then he said, No. The response unsettled her. She had expected defense. Instead, he gave her recognition. Back at the apartment, Mason's technicians examined Sloane's drive inside an isolated system. No one opened a file until they confirmed there was no malicious program. The process took nearly an hour. Avery paced near the windows. Gabriel sat at the dining table reading the printed article again. You have read that 3 times, Avery said. 4. Did the facts change? No. Then why I am looking for what we assumed? Avery stopped pacing. And we assumed Sloane was either part of the network or investigating it. She may be both. Gabriel looked up. That is more likely. Mason entered from a hallway. The drive is clean. Avery sat beside Gabriel. The technician opened the first folder. Inside were audio recordings, scanned contracts, interview notes, photographs, and spreadsheets. Avery selected a recording dated 14 months earlier. A man's voice filled the speakers. Thomas Kessler. He was speaking to Adrian Wolfe in what sounded like a restaurant. Kessler complained that a school repair project had attracted attention because teachers posted photographs of water damage. Wolfe told him the problem would disappear once the inspection passed. Kessler laughed. Children have been learning under buckets for 50 years. Another winter will not kill them. Avery stopped the recording. No one spoke. Her hands had become cold. She opened the next file. A witness statement from a former Riverside accountant described false invoices and transfers into Harbor Municipal Advisory. Another file contained photographs of damaged steel beams inside the elementary school. The evidence was not only broader than Avery's original files, it was cleaner. Originals instead of copies, names attached to statements, dates that could be verified. Jonah joined through the secure connection. He examined the financial documents. "These appear legitimate." "Appear?" Avery asked. "I need time to confirm account records, but the internal numbers match transfers I already found." Gabriel opened a folder marked Federal Communications. Inside were email printouts with names removed. Dates, meeting locations, and reference numbers remained. Avery pointed to one. "That could be fabricated." "Yes," Gabriel said. Jonah examined the reference format. "It matches the system used by the Eastern District." Avery looked at him. "So the federal investigation exists?" "Probably." Gabriel closed the folder. "Probably keeps people alive until proof arrives." Avery leaned back. Sloan had not lied about everything. That made her more dangerous, not less. A person who lied badly could be dismissed. A person who mixed truth with omission could build a world inside someone else's mind. Avery looked toward the darkened screen of her compromised laptop. "Open Evan's access records." The technician searched Sloan's files. They found a document listing internal downloads from her office. Evan had copied hundreds of files over 7 months. The pattern changed 3 weeks earlier. He began accessing documents related not only to Kessler and Wolf, but also to Voss, Sloan, and several financial structures tied to businesses near Gabriel's network. Avery looked at Gabriel. He went beyond what Sloan was collecting, or someone ordered him to. Jonah highlighted a date. "This was the day before the drive appeared at your apartment." Avery felt a pulse of unease. The unseen player had not simply stolen Sloan's case. They had expanded it. They wanted connections exposed that Sloan had either missed or deliberately excluded. Gabriel stood. Someone wanted every faction looking at every other faction. Why, Avery asked. To create space. For what Gabriel looked at the network diagram on the wall. When powerful people begin defending themselves, they stop watching what belongs to them. Avery's phone vibrated inside the locked drawer. Everyone in the room turned. Mason retrieved it and checked the screen. Unknown sender. Gabriel took the device and placed it on the table without opening the message. Avery looked at him. "It is addressed to me. That does not mean you touch it." Mason connected the phone to an isolated reader. The message appeared on the clean monitor. "Sloan is lying. The federal case will never reach court. She is using the delay to remove evidence and witnesses." Below the words was a photograph. A young man sat bound to a metal chair. His face was bruised. Silver tape covered his mouth. A newspaper lay on the floor beside him, its front page showing that morning's date. Avery's breath caught. "Evan." Gabriel studied the image. Behind the chair were exposed brick walls, tall industrial windows, and rusted metal supports. Mason enlarged the photograph. A faded symbol appeared on the wall near Evan's shoulder. 3 stacked lines inside a circle. Gabriel became completely still. Avery saw the change. "What is it?" He did not answer. Mason looked at him. "You recognize the mark?" "Yes." "From where Avery asked." Gabriel's eyes remained on the screen. "That building belonged to a shipping company. Whose company?" His silence gave her the answer before he spoke. "Mine." The room seemed to close around them. Avery looked from the photograph to Gabriel. "You said the money only touched the edges of your network." "It did. Now the missing source is being held inside one of your buildings." "It is not one of my buildings anymore." "When did you sell it?" 4 years ago." To whom Gabriel looked at Mason. "Find the deed." Mason began typing. Avery did not move. For the first time since calling Gabriel from the ambulance, the fear inside her turned in his direction. Not because she believed he had ordered the crash, because she understood how much of his world remained hidden from her. Mason found the property record. The building had been purchased by a holding company with no visible owner. Jonah traced the registration. His voice changed. The company was created by someone who used to work for us. Gabriel's face hardened. Name. Jonah looked directly into the camera. Caleb Rourke. Avery waited for Gabriel to explain. He did not. Outside the windows, Philadelphia continued moving beneath a pale afternoon sky. Inside the apartment, the photograph of Evan Wolfe remained on the screen, bound and bleeding inside a warehouse tied to Gabriel's past. Bound hands, blood at the corner of his mouth, the faded shipping mark behind him. Avery looked at Gabriel and waited. He did not move. Caleb Rourke's name had changed the room more completely than a gunshot. Mason stood near the table with one hand resting beside the keyboard. Jonah's face remained visible on the secure monitor, his expression tense. Avery broke the silence. Who is he? Gabriel looked at the photograph instead of her, someone who should have disappeared. That is not an answer. It is the beginning of one. Avery closed the distance between them. Then begin. Gabriel's eyes moved to hers. Caleb Rourke handled financial operations for my organization. He understood how legitimate businesses could hide illegal movement without collapsing under inspection. How long did he work for you? 11 years. And you trusted him? Gabriel's expression hardened. Yes. The single word carried more weight than Avery expected. Trust was not language Gabriel used easily. It was not something he admitted without cost. What happened? She asked. Rourke began selling access. To whom? Developers, political intermediaries, smaller organizations that wanted to move money through systems they did not understand. Avery looked at the network diagram on the wall. He taught them your methods. He sold pieces of them. And you did not know. Not at first. Gabriel walked toward the windows. The afternoon light had weakened, leaving the city beneath them colorless and distant. Rourke was careful. He changed percentages, moved dates, created enough difference to make the systems appear unrelated. When I discovered what he had done, I gave him one opportunity to leave Philadelphia. Avery watched his reflection in the glass. You let him go. I believed he understood the alternative. What was the alternative? Gabriel looked back at her. You already know. Avery felt her ribs tighten beneath the bandage. Did you order him killed? I ordered him found. That is not the same question. No. Did you? Gabriel remained silent. The answer existed inside the silence. Avery stepped away from him. You told me the companies connected to the corruption only touched the edges of your network. They did. You told me the structure had been copied. It was. By a man you trained. I did not train him to steal from city schools. No. You trained him to hide money. Gabriel's jaw tightened. Mason looked between them but did not interfere. Avery pointed toward Evan's photograph. That man is tied to your past. He is being held inside a warehouse that used to belong to you. The money follows a system created inside your organization. How much else have you not told me? Gabriel's voice became quieter. You are asking whether I am involved. I am asking whether I have enough information to know. Then ask directly. Avery held his gaze. Did you know Rourke was part of this before Jonah said his name? No. Did you know that warehouse might still be used by people connected to you? No. Did you order anyone to follow me, threaten me, or force my car off the road? No. Gabriel answered without hesitation. Avery believed him. That was the problem. Believing Gabriel did not erase the world around him. She looked down at the leather folder containing Sloane's drive. How do I know what your organization has done without your knowledge? You do not. The honesty struck harder than denial. Gabriel continued. I control what I can. I punish what escapes control. But any man who tells you he knows every action committed in his name is either lying or already dead. That is supposed to reassure me no. Then what is it supposed to do? Tell you the truth. Avery looked toward the screen. Evan's bruised face stared back at them. The truth keeps arriving after someone gets hurt. Gabriel stepped closer. That is usually when people become willing to hear it. Avery turned toward him. And that makes it acceptable no. Again, no defense, no justification. Only the hard shape of what he believed. Jonah interrupted through the monitor. I traced the holding company that owns the warehouse. Everyone looked toward him. It belongs to Northline Property Group. Northline is controlled by 3 entities registered in Delaware. 2 are dead ends. The third connects to an investment firm in Baltimore, Rourke Gabriel said. Yes, he has been moving through that firm for at least 18 months. Mason opened another file. We have traffic cameras near the warehouse. The photo could have been taken within the last 6 hours. Any vehicles, Gabriel asked. 2 delivery vans entered this morning. 1 left. The other is still inside. Gabriel looked at the image. Can you confirm Evan is still there? No. Then assume they moved him after sending the photograph. Avery shook her head. They want us to think that. Gabriel turned. What? The message did not ask for anything. It told you to publish. Exactly. If they wanted Evan hidden, they would not show us where he was. If they wanted him dead, they would not need to send proof he was alive. Mason crossed his arms. They want us to find the warehouse. Avery nodded. Or they want Gabriel to react to the symbol. Gabriel's eyes narrowed. Rourke knows I will recognize it. He wants you involved. He already has me involved. No. He wants you visible. Avery walked toward the network diagram. Kessler runs when I open his files. Wolf deletes records. Voss moves equipment. Sloan asks for time. Rourke has been pushing every side toward the others. Jonah listened from the monitor. Avery pointed to the names. He sent me evidence that could destroy all of them. He let someone watch what I opened. He arranged a warning that pointed toward Voss. Now he sends a photograph from a building tied to Gabriel. Mason looked at Gabriel. She may be right. Gabriel did not respond. Avery continued. Rourke does not want to hide. He wants everyone else exposed first. Jonah opened several financial records. If Kessler, Wolf, Sloan, and Voss Fall City contracts worth hundreds of millions become vulnerable. Gabriel looked toward the screen. Who receives them? Companies positioned to replace the existing contractors. Jonah searched through ownership records. A minute passed. Then another. Avery watched names appear and disappear. Jonah stopped. Northline has interests in demolition, private security, waste removal, and material transport. Mason understood first. He built replacements. Gabriel's expression changed. Rourke had not simply infiltrated the corruption network. He had prepared to inherit it. Avery stared at the screen. He used me to clear the field. Gabriel's voice was cold. He used the truth because it was cheaper than a war. The words remained in the room. Avery thought of the anonymous envelope outside her apartment, the silent drive, the documents arranged carefully enough to guide her toward certain names, the motorcycle appearing in her mirror, the warning messages arriving whenever she began moving outside the path someone had chosen. Rourke had not wanted justice. He had wanted demolition. She had been the instrument. Avery looked at Gabriel. Then we stopped playing his version. Gabriel turned to Mason. Find the warehouse entrances. Mason opened the building plans. Avery stepped toward the table. I am coming. No. Gabriel's answer was immediate. You need Evan to confirm what happened. I need him alive. He may not speak to your people. He will speak when he understands the alternative. Avery's expression hardened. That is exactly why I need to be there. Gabriel looked at her. You were nearly killed 2 nights ago, and Evan may be killed tonight. That is not your responsibility. He became my responsibility when he sent me the files. Gabriel went still. Avery heard his own words between them. Trust makes someone your responsibility. She knew he heard them too. Mason focused on the building plan, pretending not to notice. Gabriel stepped closer to Avery. You are not trained for this. I am not asking to carry a weapon. You are asking to enter a location controlled by a man who has already demonstrated that he knows how to reach you. I can stay in the vehicle until Evan is secure. No, Gabriel. No. Avery looked at him for a long moment. You do not get to pull me into the truth and then lock me away when it becomes inconvenient. I pulled you out of a hospital. You brought me into your investigation to keep you alive. And I found Sloan. I recognized the pattern in the files. I realized there were 3 players. I identified why Rourke sent the photograph. Gabriel's voice lowered. That does not make you safe. No, it makes me useful. The word landed between them. Gabriel looked at her bruised face, the fading cut above her eyebrow, the exhaustion she was hiding through anger. He hated that she was right. Avery saw the decision before he spoke. You stay with Eli until Mason confirms the building is secure. Agreed. If anything changes, Eli drives you away. Agreed. You do not leave the vehicle without my permission. Avery paused. Gabriel's eyes hardened. Say it. I will stay inside unless Evan is brought out. That was not the instruction. It is the promise I can keep. Gabriel stared at her. Then he looked toward Mason. Prepare the vehicles. The warehouse stood near the Delaware River behind a line of abandoned freight buildings and rusted fencing. Night had fallen by the time they approached. Rain moved across the windshield in uneven sheets. Industrial lights glowed through the mist. Freight cranes rose beyond the river like dark skeletons. Eli drove without speaking. Avery sat in the rear seat wearing a protective vest beneath her coat. It pressed against her bruised ribs with every turn. Gabriel sat beside her, checking messages from Mason. His face had become unreadable again. The man who argued with her in the apartment had disappeared beneath the controlled surface of someone preparing for violence. Avery watched his hands. Steady. No wasted movement. You have done this many times, she said. Gabriel did not look up. Yes. Do you ever get afraid? Yes. The answer surprised her. What do you do with it? Give it a task. Avery looked out at the rain. My fear usually gives me one. What task? Run. Gabriel put the phone away. You did not run this time. I called you. That was not running. I was unconscious shortly afterward. It may not count. A faint change touched his mouth. Not quite a smile. The vehicle slowed. Mason's voice came through the radio. North entrance is clear. 1 guard outside the loading area. 2 heat signatures on the 2nd level. Unknown number inside the central office. Gabriel reached for the door handle. Avery touched his sleeve. He looked at her. Bring Evan back. I intend to. That sounded like one of your promises. It is. Gabriel stepped into the rain. Mason met him beside a concrete barrier. Both men disappeared between the warehouses, with 4 others following behind. Eli moved the vehicle into a shadowed position facing the side entrance. Avery watched the building. The windows on the upper floor were dark. 1 light burned near the loading dock. Rainwater poured from broken gutters and struck the pavement in heavy streams. Minutes passed. No gunfire. No shouting. Only the engine's quiet vibration and the slow sweep of the windshield wipers. Avery looked at Eli. How long have you known Gabriel? 20 years. Has he always been like this? Eli kept his eyes on the warehouse. Like what? Controlled? No. Avery waited. Eli did not continue. You know that answer invites another question. I know. What changed him? Eli glanced at her through the mirror. Trust. The radio cracked. Mason's voice came through. Outer room clear. A second voice followed, too distorted to recognize. Then silence. Avery watched the side door. Something moved near the loading area. A man in dark clothing appeared beneath the light, pulling another figure beside him. The second man stumbled. His hands were tied. Silver tape covered his mouth. Evan. Avery leaned forward. Eli. I see them. The armed man moved toward a white delivery van parked near the far gate. Eli reached for the radio. Before he could speak, the van's lights came on. The side door opened. Another man stepped out with a weapon. They were moving Evan before Gabriel's team reached the central office. Avery saw the route. The van would pass directly in front of their position before reaching the gate. Block them. Eli turned toward her. No, they are taking him. Gabriel told me to keep you inside. Then keep me inside and move the car. Eli looked at the van, then at the gate. The engine roared. He drove forward. The black sedan crossed the access road and stopped sideways between the van and the exit. The van braked hard. One of the armed men raised his weapon. Eli pushed Avery down before the first shot struck the windshield. Glass fractured above them. Avery heard more shots. Metal screamed against metal. Eli fired through the broken side window. The man beside Evan dropped behind a concrete barrier. Evan fell to the ground. Avery lifted her head. The second armed man moved around the van toward him. She saw Gabriel emerge from the darkness behind the loading dock. He fired once. The man collapsed. Mason and two others crossed the yard. Within seconds, Evan was pulled behind the sedan. Gabriel reached the vehicle and yanked open the rear door. His face was wet with rain. His eyes found Avery. Are you hurt? No. He looked at the shattered windshield, then at Eli. I made a decision, Eli said. Gabriel's voice was dangerously calm. I noticed. Avery pushed herself upright. He saved Evan. Gabriel looked at her. You were supposed to remain out of sight. I remained inside the car. You used the car as a wall. I kept my promise. For one moment, anger moved across Gabriel's face with enough force to break his control. Then Evan coughed on the pavement behind him. Gabriel turned away. Get him into the second vehicle. Mason cut the restraints from Evan's wrists. Evan's face was swollen. His shirt was stained with blood, but he was conscious. He looked toward Avery. Recognition entered his eyes. Mara Bennett, he whispered. Avery stepped out into the rain. Gabriel caught her arm. You are not leaving this vehicle. He knows me. He knows your name. He called me Mara. Gabriel heard it too. Avery's name was Avery. Mara Bennett had been the false name she used while reporting on the riverfront contracts 4 years earlier. Only a small number of sources knew it. Evan looked at her again. You wrote about Pier 6. Avery moved closer despite Gabriel's hand on her arm. Yes. Evan's breathing shook. They chose you because of that article. A burst of gunfire sounded from inside the warehouse. Mason pushed Evan toward the vehicle. We need to move. Gabriel opened the rear door. Avery climbed inside beside Evan. Gabriel entered after her. Eli took the second car while another driver pulled them away from the warehouse. Behind them, rain swallowed the building. Evan leaned against the seat, trembling. Avery removed the tape residue from his cheek. Who chose me? Evan closed his eyes. Rourke. Gabriel watched him. Why? Because you saw Kessler before anyone else. You knew the contracts were connected. Avery looked at Gabriel. Evan continued. Rourke said people would believe you. He said you were clean enough to look independent and damaged enough to control. Avery's stomach turned. What did he use against you? Evan opened his eyes. My signatures, false invoices. I approved them for my uncle before I joined Sloane's office. Did you know what they were? Some of them. His voice cracked. At first I told myself they were temporary transfers. Then the amounts grew. Gabriel spoke. Rourke found out. He had copies. He said he would send them to federal investigators unless I accessed Sloane's files. You compiled the original drive, Avery said. Yes. Did you leave it at my apartment? No. I sent the data to Rourke. He prepared the drive. Did you know he would send it to me? Not until later. Avery looked out at the wet streets. Who installed the monitoring program? Rourke's technician. He wanted to know what you opened. Why warn me after sending the files? Evan swallowed. You went too far. Gabriel leaned closer. Explain. Rourke wanted Kessler Wolf and Sloane exposed. He wanted Voss weakened, but the files about the laundering system connected back to Northline and his new companies. Avery understood. The warning was meant to keep me inside the story he designed. Evan nodded. The motorcycle was supposed to frighten you. Who ordered it, Rourke? Who hired the rider, a contractor connected to Voss's nephew? Rourke wanted the trail to point toward Voss. Gabriel's face became still. If Avery had died, Evan looked at him. Rourke said the rider knew how far to push. Gabriel's voice dropped. Men who say that have never sat inside the car. Evan looked down at his bound wrists. They were going to kill me tonight. Why? Avery asked. Because Sloane met with you. Rourke assumed I had told her more than I did. The sedan entered Center City. Buildings rose around them, bright and indifferent. Avery looked at Evan. Is Sloane's federal case real? Yes. Is she clean? Evan hesitated. No one is clean. Gabriel's eyes sharpened. That is not an answer. Evan took a painful breath. She did not steal the money. She did not order the crash. She has been working with federal investigators. Avery waited. But she delayed giving them everything. Why? She wanted Kessler weakened before the case became public. She wanted Voss cooperating. She wanted her name separated from the holding company. She wanted control, Avery said. Yes. Did she know I was in danger? Evan looked away. She knew someone was watching you. Before the crash. Yes. Avery felt anger settle into something colder. She left me exposed. She thought contacting you directly would reveal the investigation. Gabriel looked at Avery. She made a calculation. Avery turned toward him. You say that like you understand. I do. That does not make it right. No. The answer came without defense. Avery looked at him more carefully. Something had changed since the argument in the apartment. Not enough to transform him. Enough to make him stop pretending that effective choices were always justified. They returned to the safe apartment shortly before midnight. A doctor loyal to Gabriel treated Evan's injuries in the bedroom. Mason placed guards at every entrance. Jonah began verifying Evan's statements against the financial records. Avery stood near the kitchen counter, still wearing the protective vest. Gabriel entered after changing his wet shirt. His sleeves were rolled again. There was blood across one knuckle. Avery looked at it. Yours, no. She nodded toward the hallway. What happens to the accountant who helped Rourke? Gabriel's face closed. He is being questioned. That was not what I asked. No. Avery removed the vest and set it on the counter. What are you going to do with him? Gabriel poured water into a glass. He gave Rourke access to internal structures. He helped build the system used to steal public money. He exposed you. Is he responsible for the crash? He made it possible. That is not the same thing. In my world, it is close enough. Avery watched him. You are going to kill him. Gabriel drank the water. He sold access to people who tried to kill you. You keep saying this is about protecting me. It is. No. Killing him protects your authority. Gabriel set the glass down. The sound was soft. The tension was not. My authority keeps people alive. It also keeps them afraid. Fear prevents repetition. So does prison. Prison requires evidence, witnesses, and permission. Avery stepped closer. You are helping me expose men who hide violence behind systems. Then you turn around and call your own violence responsibility. Gabriel's jaw tightened. I am not Kessler. No. Her voice softened. You are the man asking me to trust him. The words reached him. Avery saw it. Gabriel looked away first. For a long moment, neither spoke. The apartment hummed around them. A medical bag closed in the bedroom. Mason spoke quietly near the door. Traffic moved 18 floors below. Gabriel took out his phone. He called Mason. Hold the accountant. A pause. Do nothing else. He ended the call. Avery looked at him. Why Gabriel met her eyes? Because you asked. I argued. You mattered. The honesty entered the room without protection. Avery's breath caught. Gabriel continued before she could answer. Do not mistake restraint for forgiveness. I do not. And do not mistake this for a promise that I will become someone else. I am not asking you to become someone else. What are you asking? Avery looked toward the bedroom where Evan lay injured. To choose who you are before someone else gets hurt. Gabriel studied her. Then Jonah called from the secure monitor. I found Rourke's exit plan. They moved to the table. Jonah displayed private flight records and financial transfers. A charter jet is scheduled to leave from a private airfield outside Chester tomorrow night. Passenger list is blank, but the payment came through Northline. He is leaving the country, Mason said. Not before he transfers control of the companies, Jonah replied. There are scheduled ownership changes beginning tomorrow morning. Avery looked at the files spread across the table. We have Evan's testimony, Sloane's evidence, the original drive, and the records connecting Rourke to Northlane. Gabriel understood where she was going. No. Avery turned. You do not know what I am going to say. Yes, I do. We publish everything. Sloane asked for 60 days. Sloane protected her investigation instead of me. Publishing places every witness at risk. Waiting gives Rourke time to leave. Gabriel looked at Evan's statement on the screen. We give the evidence to the federal prosecutor and let Sloane decide what becomes public. We force action. Avery shook her head. No more hidden agreements, no more selected truth. She began sorting the documents into folders. Kessler, Wolf, Voss, Sloane, Rourke, Evan's role, the copied financial system. Gabriel's eyes settled on her. The copied system leads toward me. I know. Law enforcement will examine every business connected to it. I know. People in my organization will lose money. Some may be charged. I know. Gabriel moved closer. And you are still going to publish. Avery looked up at him. I will not hide your connection because I care about you. Silence. Mason looked away. Jonah became very interested in another screen. Gabriel did not move. You care about me, he said. It was not a question, but Avery answered. Yes. The word frightened her more than the warehouse had. She continued before fear could take it back. That is why I cannot protect you with a lie. Gabriel looked at her as though the room had shifted beneath him. Avery held his gaze. If what you told me is true, the evidence will show the difference between your organization and Rourke's operation. And if it does not, then the truth remains the truth. Gabriel's face revealed nothing for several seconds. Then he reached from the folder connecting Rourke's accounts to the copied system. He placed it in front of her. Use all of it. Avery looked down. You are sure? No. His voice was quiet. But do it anyway. They worked through the night. Evan dictated a full statement from the bedroom while a recorder captured every word. Jonah verified account ownership and transfer dates. Mason secured copies of the warehouse footage and the motorcycle trail. Avery rewrote the article from the beginning. She removed assumptions, added names, linked every claim to a document recording witness or public record. Gabriel sat beside her reading each page. At 4 a.m, Avery reached the section describing his former financial system. She stopped typing. Gabriel noticed. What? This will change your life. It already has. She looked at him. He looked tired for the first time since the police called. Not physically tired. Something deeper. The exhaustion of a man holding together a world he no longer fully believed deserved saving. Avery returned to the keyboard. At 5:40, the article was complete. They sent encrypted copies to 3 national newsrooms, a federal prosecutor, and Avery's former editor. The upload began. A progress bar moved slowly across the screen. 12%, 21, 34. Mason's phone vibrated. He read the message and looked toward Gabriel. Vehicles are approaching the building. How many? 3. Rourke likely. Gabriel stood. Mason continued. Less than 5 minutes away. Avery looked at the upload. 42%. Gabriel closed the laptop halfway. Avery caught it before the connection broke. What are you doing? Moving you. The upload stops if we lose the secure network. We will send it again. They may cut the power or destroy the files. We have copies. We have witnesses in this building. Gabriel looked toward Mason. Lock the elevators. Seal the service entrance. Mason moved immediately. Avery reopened the laptop fully. The progress bar reached 48%. Gabriel checked the weapon beneath his jacket. Avery looked at him. You said Rourke used me because truth was cheaper than an army. Gabriel turned toward the hallway. He brought the army anyway. The apartment lights went out. For 1 second, darkness swallowed everything. Then emergency lamps flickered along the floor, washing the room in a dim red glow. Avery looked at the laptop. The screen remained alive on battery power. 51%. Mason's voice came through the darkness. They cut the main electrical line. Gabriel moved toward Avery. Bedroom, now. No. Avery. The secure router has backup power, but only for a few minutes. Gabriel looked at the progress bar, then toward the hallway. A heavy impact shook the service door. Mason drew his weapon. They are inside the building. Gabriel removed his jacket and placed it over the back of a chair. The movement was calm enough to make Avery more afraid. He checked the magazine in his pistol. Stay behind the kitchen island. Avery lifted the laptop and moved to the floor behind the marble counter. Gabriel crouched beside her. If they enter this room, you do not stand. You do not call my name. You keep your head down. What about you? His eyes met hers. I will be where I need to be. Another impact struck the service entrance. Metal bent. Mason positioned 2 men near the hallway. Eli guarded the main door. The doctor moved Evan into the reinforced bedroom and locked it from within. The laptop reached 58%. A speaker near the ceiling crackled. Static filled the apartment. Then a man's voice emerged. Gabriel. Avery looked up. Gabriel's expression turned to stone. Caleb Rourke continued. You always did spend too much money on security. Gabriel glanced toward Mason. Mason shook his head. The system had been compromised. Rourke laughed softly through the speaker. I offered you a chance to stay out of this. You forced her car off the road. She survived. That was not your decision to make. No, it was hers. Avery's hands tightened around the laptop. Rourke's voice continued. She opened files she was never meant to understand. She connected accounts she was supposed to ignore. I reminded her to remain inside the story. Gabriel looked toward the ceiling. You mistook control for intelligence. I learned that from you. The service door shook again. 63%, Rourke said. Stop the upload. Give me Evan. I erase every record that leads back to your companies. Gabriel said nothing. You can save the woman or save the kingdom. Rourke continued. You were never built to save both. Gabriel looked at Avery. In the red emergency light, he saw the bruising beneath her eyes, the cut above her brow, and the stubborn certainty that had brought her back to the truth she once abandoned. 2 years earlier, he would have protected the organization. He would have burned records, silenced witnesses, and removed every threat before dawn. Now the choice felt smaller than Rourke believed. Gabriel raised his weapon. You made the same mistake everyone makes. Rourke's voice sharpened. Which mistake? You assumed she was my weakness. The service door burst open. Gunfire tore through the hallway. Mason fired first. Gabriel moved away from Avery as bullets shattered glass and struck the walls. Sprinklers erupted overhead, pouring cold water across the apartment. Avery curled over the laptop. 70%. Footsteps moved through the hall. Someone cried out. A body struck the floor. Avery could not see Gabriel. She heard his weapon controlled and precise, then Mason shouting from the far side of the room. A shadow appeared beyond the windows. A man climbed over the exterior maintenance balcony and forced open a glass door. He entered behind Avery. She saw his reflection in the dark laptop screen. The attacker raised his weapon. Avery grabbed the heavy metal lamp beside the couch and swung with both hands. The base struck his wrist. The pistol hit the floor. He caught Avery by the coat and pulled her backward. Pain burned through her ribs. She drove the lamp into his face. He staggered. Gabriel appeared from the hallway and struck him once across the jaw. The man collapsed beside the broken glass. Gabriel turned to Avery. Blood ran along her sleeve. His control vanished for half a second. You are hurt. It is glass. He reached for her arm. Avery pulled away and looked at the screen. 84%. Avery, I am fine. You are bleeding. So is your floor. Keep them away from the router. Gunfire sounded near the main entrance. Gabriel stared at her, anger and fear fighting behind his eyes. Then he returned to the hallway. The backup lights flickered. 91%. The router began to beep. Avery watched the battery indicator fall. 94, 96. The apartment went completely dark. The router failed. The screen froze at 99%. Avery stopped breathing. Then the connection symbol returned. The laptop had switched to the mobile transmitter Mason's technicians had installed. A final confirmation box appeared. Send files to all recipients. Avery pressed the key. The screen displayed one word. Delivered. Her phone began vibrating inside the locked drawer. Then Mason's. Then Gabriel's. Newsrooms had received the files. The federal prosecutor had received Evan's testimony. The public archive had received every supporting document. The truth no longer belonged to one person, one machine, or one room. Rourke could not destroy it. The remaining gunfire ended. Mason entered the living room breathing hard. Building is secure. Gabriel returned a moment later. Rourke. Not here, Mason said. He was directing them remotely. Avery looked at the delivered message. He is going to the airfield. Gabriel took out his phone. Eli. A pause. Chester Airfield. Rourke is leaving tonight. Eli answered from the hall. Detective Price is already moving. Gabriel looked toward Avery. She understood. He had given the evidence to the police. Not only the corruption records, the crash footage, the warehouse attack, Evan's statement. Everything necessary to arrest Rourke without Gabriel deciding the punishment himself. An hour later, Caleb Rourke reached the private airfield. He never boarded the plane. Detective Nolan Price arrested him beside the runway while federal agents seized the aircraft and every device in his possession. Rourke demanded to speak with Gabriel. Gabriel came only after Avery's article had been published. Police lights crossed the wet pavement. Rourke stood in handcuffs beside a dark vehicle. He looked at Gabriel with open disbelief. You are giving me to the police. Gabriel glanced toward Avery, who remained near Eli's car. No. He looked back at Rourke. I am giving her an ending she can print. By morning, Philadelphia was in chaos. Thomas Kessler was arrested at a private terminal in Harrisburg. Adrian Wolfe was detained while attempting to cross into Canada. Federal agents searched Riverside Civic Strategies and seized boxes of records before employees could destroy them. Malcolm Voss entered negotiations with prosecutors, but the publication of his financial ties stripped away much of his leverage. Rebecca Sloan stood before cameras at City Hall and admitted she had assisted a federal investigation. She also admitted she had delayed certain disclosures to protect witnesses and preserve the case. Avery's article documented the part Sloan did not emphasize: her political ambition, her secret negotiation with Voss, her decision to leave Avery exposed rather than risk revealing her own investigation. Sloan was not arrested. She was not celebrated either. For the first time in years, she could not control the story. Evan entered protective custody and agreed to testify. The city reopened investigations into school repairs, bridge contracts, and public housing projects. Parents gathered outside the damaged elementary school carrying signs with the names of the officials who had profited from their children's danger. 3 weeks later, Avery returned to a newsroom. Phones rang around her. Editors argued over headlines. Reporters hurried between desks carrying coffee and documents. It was loud, imperfect, alive. Her name appeared above the investigation on the front page. She accepted a permanent position with conditions. A legal team for sensitive investigations. Security for vulnerable sources. No more working alone. She had not returned as the same woman who left. She was still afraid. She had simply stopped treating fear as an order. Gabriel paid his own price. Investigators examined several companies near his network. 2 operations closed. A major union contract disappeared. Men who had served him for years accused him of sacrificing power for a journalist. Gabriel listened without defending himself. Then he said, "Power that cannot survive the truth was borrowed." Some men left. Others remained. Gabriel discovered that loss could feel cleaner than control. A month after the arrests, Avery found him on the rooftop of his Center City building. Philadelphia stretched beneath them, beneath a gray evening sky. "You lost money because of my article," she said. "I have more. You lost territory. I can take different territory. You may have lost people." Gabriel looked across the city. "Then they were never mine." Avery stepped beside him. "You could have walked away when the police called." "No, you did not know what I had. I knew you asked for me. That was enough." Gabriel turned toward her. It was more than anyone had asked of me in years. Avery studied his face. Was it responsibility? At first, and after. He stepped closer. After it became the only honest thing in my life. Rain began to fall lightly. Avery did not move away. "You are still dangerous." Yes. You still keep secrets. Yes. You still think you can order everyone around. A faint smile touched his mouth. Only when they are wrong. Avery closed the distance between them. This is a terrible idea. Most honest things are. She kissed him. The kiss carried fear, anger, relief, and 2 years of unfinished words. When they separated, Avery rested her forehead against his. This does not mean I belong to you. Gabriel touched her cheek carefully. No. His voice was quiet. It means I belong beside you until you tell me otherwise. Below them, Philadelphia continued to move. The city still had secrets. Avery was no longer running from them.